It was a quiet night in Fairview, a small town deep in the heart of the United States. The cold wind whispered through the trees when suddenly the silence was shattered by frantic barking. Buddy, a loyal and protective golden retriever, seemed completely out of control. He ran back and forth, scratching at the door and howling desperately. Margaret, a 62-year-old woman who had lived alone since her children moved away, tried to calm him down. But nothing worked. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. And when they finally realized what was happening, everyone was left frozen in shock. Margaret had always trusted Buddy to keep her company. He was a gentle dog, never caused trouble. But that night, something was undeniably wrong. He paced the room restlessly, his paws echoing against the wooden floor. He growled at the front door, a low, urgent sound. Margaret had never seen him act like this before. She tried distracting him with a treat, but Buddy completely ignored it, something that was highly unusual. His growling grew deeper and more intense until suddenly he grabbed the sleeve of her blouse and tugged, something he had never done before. His eyes were locked on the door, as if something out there demanded her immediate attention. Margaret's heart began to race. Buddy's behavior wasn't just a nuisance, it was a clear warning. Trying to reassure herself, she wondered if maybe a raccoon or a deer had wandered into the yard. But deep inside, fear was beginning to take hold. When she finally took a step toward the door, a shiver ran down her spine. Something inside told her she needed to trust her faithful companion's instincts. She hesitated for a moment, feeling a weight on her chest, as if she was on the verge of a great revelation. Glancing around the room, she searched for any sign that she was just overreacting, but Buddy's expression left no doubt. He barked again, more insistently this time, then ran to the window, tapping it lightly with his paw, as if urging her to look outside. Margaret slowly stepped forward, her trembling hands pulling the curtain aside. The street appeared empty, but something in the darkness sent a wave of unease through her. The cold night wind whistled through the cracks in the door, and when Margaret finally mustered the courage to open it, another chill coursed through her spine. The damp scent of freshly turned earth and wet leaves filled her senses. The yard was dark, but the dim porch light cast a faint glow over part of the lawn. Buddy bolted forward, barking insistently, then came to a sudden stop near a bush. His body was stiff, his nose lifted toward the air as if he had picked up a scent. Margaret took a few hesitant steps outside, the freezing air wrapping around her body. She strained her eyes to see through the darkness, but her vision was slow to adjust. The wind rattled the tree branches, casting eerie shadows across the ground. Buddy remained still, staring intently at something she couldn't yet see. Fear gripped her chest, but the need to know what was happening outweighed it. Then she heard it, a faint, almost imperceptible sound, a weak whimper, coming from somewhere nearby. Margaret held her breath. Whatever was there was alive. Her heart pounded in her chest, and her hands trembled as she took a few more steps forward. When she finally reached the bush where Buddy was standing, she saw it. Something was there, hidden in the darkness. Something that made her freeze, her breath caught in her throat, a deeper cold spreading through her body. We want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? If you love heartwarming animal stories, hit that like button and help us keep bringing you these unforgettable moments. Anyone who has ever had a dog knows they sense things we can't. They notice changes, detect danger, and perceive the unexpected long before we do. Buddy had always been a calm, affectionate dog, but on this night his determination felt almost supernatural. Margaret shivered. What was happening? She tried convincing herself she was just being paranoid, but the look in Buddy's eyes was too intense to ignore. His body was tense, fur bristling, his breathing heavy as if trying to convey something urgent. The uneasy feeling within her grew stronger, like a thick fog closing in. Neighbors started emerging from their houses, drawn by Buddy's relentless barking. Lights flickered on in windows, and a few people stepped out in their robes, trying to understand the commotion. "Margaret, is everything all right?" An elderly man from next door called out. She opened her mouth to reply, but Buddy interrupted with another sharp bark, this one even more urgent. He took a few steps toward the yard, circling, scratching at the ground with his paws, then looking back at Margaret, pleading for her to understand. The wind picked up, sending another shiver through her. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, to retreat to the warmth of her home. But the pull of knowing what Buddy was trying to reveal was stronger. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to shield against the cold that suddenly felt even more biting. The silence that followed was unsettling, as if the entire world was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The neighbors watched, hesitant, as if they too sensed that something was about to unfold. Margaret hesitated. A part of her wanted to ignore it all, to step back inside, lock the door and hide under the covers. But another part, a deep, instinctive feeling, told her she needed to trust her loyal companion. Her heart pounded, every muscle in her body tense. The icy wind stung her skin, but adrenaline dulled its bite. A strange silence settled over everything, as if the very air itself was bracing for her next move. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward cautiously, her eyes adjusting to the darkness of the night. She was not alone. Something else was out there, hidden in the night. She glanced back at her neighbors, searching for reassurance, but their faces mirrored her own uncertainty. Whatever Buddy had sensed, they all felt it too, though none of them could yet comprehend what it was. Margaret squinted, trying to focus on the faint movement in the bushes. Every passing second stretched unbearably. Buddy ran toward a bush near the gate and began digging furiously. Margaret heard a faint, muffled sound coming from the ground. Her heart pounded. The noise. It sounded like a weak cry, so fragile that it made her freeze for a moment. Trembling, she knelt down and started clearing the damp soil with her bare hands, ignoring the dirt and the cold numbing her fingers. The more she dug, the clearer the sound became. With every second that passed, her desperation grew. Suddenly, her fingers brushed against rough fabric, a worn, dirty blanket, partially buried. With a shaky pull, Margaret lifted it, and what she saw made her gasp. Inside was a newborn baby, curled up, motionless. Its tiny cheeks were icy from the freezing night air. Her heart raced. The fragile little body barely moved, but the faint, intermittent cries proved there was still life. Tears welled up in Margaret's eyes as she gently wrapped her arms around the child. Buddy stood by her side, growling softly, as if still on high alert. His eyes never left the scene, as though he knew his mission wasn't over yet. A wave of panic surged through Margaret. My God, who could have done this, she thought, instinctively pulling the baby close to her chest, trying to warm it with her own body heat. Without hesitation, she jumped to her feet and ran toward the house, her bare feet barely feeling the frozen ground beneath her. With trembling hands, she grabbed the phone and dialed 911. The dispatcher's voice on the other end sounded distant, but Margaret managed to explain the situation. Pleading for help, she waited anxiously. While the ambulance was on its way, she rushed to her bedroom, grabbed a thick blanket, and carefully wrapped the baby in it. She rubbed its tiny hands, trying to bring warmth back to the delicate fingers. Desperation filled her eyes, but she knew she had to stay calm. Buddy, now sitting beside her, remained silent, his body still tense and alert. He seemed to understand the gravity of the moment. Ready to protect as always, Margaret knelt down and stroked his head. "You saved this life, my friend," she whispered, her throat tightening with emotion. When the distant sound of sirens finally echoed down the silent street, she let out a deep sigh of relief. Help had arrived. The paramedics rushed inside, quickly taking the baby and beginning emergency procedures to stabilize it. Margaret watched anxiously, her heart still racing. As they carried the child toward the ambulance, one of the paramedics turned to her and said, "If it weren't for your dog, this baby wouldn't have survived much longer out there." Margaret looked at Buddy, and in that moment, she knew. He wasn't just her companion, he was a true hero. She gently patted his head again. Buddy, now calmer, wagged his tail slightly as if he understood. His mission was complete. Do you believe dogs have a sixth sense for knowing when someone needs help? Let us know in the comments. The baby was taken to the hospital, and despite the initial signs of hypothermia, was declared healthy. The doctors were amazed at the infant's resilience, given the harsh conditions in which it had been found. The story quickly gained attention in the local media, with Buddy being celebrated as the true hero. A dog who never gave up on alerting his owner had, without a doubt, saved a life. Margaret felt a mix of relief and unease. Even knowing the baby was safe, she couldn't stop thinking about how it had ended up there. Who had left it? Why? The unanswered questions haunted her, but above all she felt an unexplainable connection to the tiny life she had rescued. In the days that followed, Margaret visited the hospital as often as she could. She spoke with the nurses, checked on the baby's condition, and whenever possible, sat beside the crib, gently holding the child's tiny hand. Meanwhile, Buddy seemed restless at home, as if he sensed that his mission wasn't quite over yet. The local news outlets spread the story far and wide. Soon, donations and adoption offers for the baby started pouring in. However, Margaret couldn't shake a thought that had taken root in her heart. What if she could give the child a home? A new beginning, a second chance, for both of them. Her heart told her this was the right path. Finally, after days of reflection and discussions with social workers, she made a decision. She would formally apply for adoption. That night hadn't just changed her routine, it had transformed her entire life. The bond between humans and dogs is truly extraordinary. They don't just protect us, they feel in ways we may never fully understand. And for Margaret, that moment marked the beginning of a new chapter, one she never imagined she would write. What do you think about Margaret's decision to adopt the baby? Would you have done the same? Now, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from? If you love heartwarming stories like this and adore dogs, hit the like button and help us continue bringing you more unforgettable moments.